Now I've got the Democratic nominee for Colorado's 3rd congressional district locked in a back and forth battle with Lauren Boebert. Adam Frisch, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Great to see you.
So as I mentioned before, you're locked in a super close race between you and Lauren Boebert. I believe that you're about just a little over 1,000 votes down as of right now. We're recording this on Saturday. So I guess first off, could you explain how many ballots are still outstanding in that race?
Great to see everybody here. So we think that there's somewhere between 3,000 and 6,000 ballots that are outstanding. We're down by about 1,000. We're down about 0.3%. At 0.5% or closer, the Secretary of State pays for and does an automatic recount. So we feel pretty comfortable, for better or worse, we're going to end up getting in a recount no matter what. And so this thing could go on for a little bit longer than a lot of us would like. We think there's somewhere between 500 and 550 overseas ballots that are outstanding. They have until this coming Wednesday, I believe it's either 5 p.m., 7 p.m., or 11:59 p.m., to come into the county clerk's office. We think there's another 1,500 ballots that haven't had a chance to be counted that were shuffling around the state, that were just not counted, and for some technical reasons, they hold them off the 27 county clerks. We think there's close to about 1,000 ballots that need to be cured. C-U-R-E-D, it's a new verb for a lot of people. That means the ballot's 95% valid. It just has to confirm that the signature is right or that the date was put on there right. And so a lot of us are spending time curing those ballots. So that's about 3,000 ballots that we know for sure that are in some type of Secretary of State's hands or county clerk's hands that just haven't been counted. Then we think there's a whole nother 2,000 to 3,000 ballots that we assume are going to come in since those last numbers I brought up to you, or should be here by the end of the day on Wednesday. So that's where we get to 3,000 to 6,000 ballots. That's what the local political press in Colorado thinks as well. So that's the ballots. On the timing, and this is where we get frustrated for a lot of us, is that we don't think there's really going to be a big update until probably next Thursday or Friday. We might see a couple ballots trickle in and then announced. Maybe on Monday or Tuesday, but we have a feeling that the county clerks are really going to just hold off until that Thursday or Friday before they make an announcement.
Do you have any indication as to how those ballots that we are waiting on are breaking, just based on how similar ballots have broken in the past?
No, it's a little bit hard. I mean, on one level, there's this assumption that the overseas ballots normally lead Democratic. That's what a lot of Democrats think is least, and they must have that based off on something. I'm kind of new to this whole thing. There's those that think the cured ballots are usually younger voters because they're not as experienced in actually filling out a ballot, which would possibly help us as well. But we really don't know. Our district has 27 counties. We have some of the most blue counties in the country, and we have some of the most red counties in the country. From what we know, there's no geographical understanding of those ballots. So it's a little bit of a mystery box about what's actually going to come out of there.
Okay, and now can you speak about how many ballots as of right now still do need to be cured, and what the campaign is doing to reach out to those people?
So, my understanding is there's about almost 1,000 ballots that need to be cured that are sitting in one of the 27 counties in our district. We need to.
This is for everybody. It's Democrats.
Yeah. There's 1,000 ballots that need to be cured. I think they're roughly along the lines of about let's call it 25 or 30% Democratic. 30 to 35% Republican. But, our district is more than 40% unaffiliated, which is our fancy term for calling them independent. And so, we're basically neck and neck. It was basically 50-50 right now. I'm a little bit under 50-50, but the Democratic registered participation in our district is only 25. So in theory, more than half of my votes came from non-Democratic voters. And so we think those cured ballots are roughly the same amount. We think they might be a little bit more skewed Democratic, but we're working on calling people and texting people. There's kind of just a general public understanding of how people cure ballots. We're working really hard. I'm assuming the Republicans are working hard as well.
So that's the deal with all the technical stuff. Bigger picture now, I guess, how the hell did we end up in a situation where, like I said before, this is a race that was rated safely Republican. It's a race that was anywhere from R+7 to R+15. You know, when you were out on the campaign trail, what did you hear from independents and Republicans who clearly weren't happy with Lauren Boebert?
So, I'll talk about what I heard, but I'll say first, here's how I think it played out from a year ago when I looked at this race. You have 8 or 9 or 10 really loud brand extremist Republicans out there in the country. Every single one of them had 65 to 75% wins in 2020, except for Representative Boebert. She only received 51% of the vote, did not win her home county. So my view is, oh my goodness, those that know her best in 2020 did not care for her. And she comes from a pretty red district. And a lot more people know her now, and not for good reason. So I assume actually the closer her circle is, the wider it is, the more people are going to be open to voting for someone else. And so one of the things that we had to have happen is that you needed to have a very weak electorally candidate. And while she's very loud and comes off as strong from a brand, it's pretty superficial because, again, she only got 51% of the vote in 2020. She would have had about 54% now because her district has been districted that, as you said, it got moved from kind of R5 to R somewhere around 7, 8, 9, 10, 538, even last week had this in an R15 district. The second thing is you needed to have a candidate that was going to work very, very hard. And we did. And I knew we were going to do that. And we drove 23 or 24,000 miles. Our district is half the state of Colorado geography. It is larger than the state of Mississippi. And so a lot of hard work. Third is the candidate was going to have some policies and a personality that was going to connect with a lot of frustrated prior Lauren Boebert voters. And I thought I had that in me on the policies, as well as I usually get along with people fairly well. I'm a good listener, and I have a pretty good grasp of some of the issues that are really facing a lot of people here. And so those are the three legs of which I was able to build this kind of, I'll say, with a great team, was able to build the moral victory. So we have the moral victory. We obviously want the real victory. So we're working on that. I wish, at least in 2022, I don't think there were any other of these loud extremists that had any other chances to lose. I thought that a year ago when it played out. I wish there were more opportunities, but there just weren't. And that's kind of why I'm like, oh my goodness, a year ago, the world might end up focusing on CD3, because if we can make a go of it, we can make it very close. It's a little daunting that there are literally hundreds of millions of people watching what's happening here, but we're sleeping well because we know we ran a really good race and we still like where we are.
Yeah. And I should note too that you're on the right side of this. So
yeah, I like that part too. So what did we hear? What did I say that resonated? One, I said a lot of times that, if I only had 6 words to run the campaign, it was people want the circus to stop. I've been saying that for a couple of years. It resonated in the most blue parts of our district, and it resonated in the most red parts of our district. I believe that 40% of the Republican Party wants their party back, and I needed to get about a fourth or a fifth of them. And so we've come pretty darn close to that. We'll see if it's enough, but we're really happy with the focus on those just true prior Boebert voters that were sick and tired of the circus. And, there's one conversation if you have traditional conservative or Republican values, and we can have a conversation about how to make the country a better place. But, you have this Trumpism wing of the party that I thought a year ago was going to start to sink. And obviously, I think one of the main consistent themes that we hear from the left or the right since Tuesday was Trump was a big loser. A smarter version of his played out in Florida and Governor DeSantis, but almost not exclusively, but almost everywhere else in the country, Trump's candidate lost, including against some well-funded, but also some not well-funded Democratic parties. So basically just Trumpism lost. I thought it was going to be a year ago, and Boebert is the definition of Trumpism. I spent a lot of time talking about, I think we need to build a coalition of the pro-normal party. That's a word my mom came up with, but this pro-normal party, I would call it tripartisan, Democrats, independents, and Republicans, and that goes back to wanting the circus to stop.
Was there a moment while you were out on the campaign trail where you realized that you do have a chance, even amid the fact that basically the entire media had written this campaign off? Like,
Yeah.
was there a moment that you were like, oh shit, this is real?
Yeah, I would say about it, when I started after I got into the general election, I started to speak in front of some conservative towns at the Chamber of Commerce's, which are conservative small business owners. But most of them are pretty practical, and ranchers and farmers, which we have a lot of, are the ultimate pragmatic people because of how they have to live their lives. It's so hard out there dealing with Mother Nature and all the moving parts, and a lot of them are dealing with animals and livestock. And I spoke the first couple of times I spoke to people, it seemed to resonate because I saw their heads nodding when I talked about what I wanted to focus on. And I didn't spend too much time talking about her, but when I did, they put their heads down and they knew what I was mentioning. And they saw the effort. And when I was leaving, they came up to me and said, Adam, I like what you have to say. You got my vote. I've never not voted for a Republican for 30 years, whatever. So that's when I started to feel like we were resonating, because again, you have that 50% or 60% of the Trump party that loves all that, the yelling and the screaming. I call it the anger-tainment industry. But, for those Republicans that are more traditional, and they might even be very, very conservative, but they're more moderate in personality, and they're kind and they're thoughtful, and they want to build a good community. And that doesn't, being thoughtful and kind and building a good community is not a left or right thing. It's just more of who you are as a person. And I knew, and we only needed 10 or 15% of her prior voters. And, 36% of the Republican base voted against her in her own primary at the end of June. So I knew we were on to a path that I thought about a year ago, and we've executed it with a fabulous team very, very well.
We're obviously all pulling for this race to go to you. I know that we're watching really closely as these final ballots continue to trickle in. But if this race doesn't go your way, do you think that this result, where it is so close, causes Lauren Boebert to moderate her positions, or do you think that she just stays as extreme as she's been thus far?
I think you're starting to see a lot of Republicans nationally realize that Trumpism is dying. I think you're seeing a lot of voters who are normally conservative or Trump or Republican starting to realize that that's starting to die out. I think that's a good news for the Republican Party, and it's good news for the country, most importantly. As to Representative Boebert herself, most people would realize maybe we need to do a course correct and actually spend time focusing on the district and not flying around the country, especially in Mar-a-Lago. Or maybe realize maybe I should actually spend more time in my district and focus on the needs of them and return the phone calls to those that have been calling me, which she hasn't been. Do I think she's going to do it? It's going to be hard to say. I'll let others figure that out. If past is prologue, she won't. But I'm a big believer in incentives, and the incentive for her has been yell and scream and rally up that angertainment. And that worked once in 2020, not by a lot, but she thought it was. Obviously, she would have taken the job more seriously. So if I had money to bet, or I was forced to bet, I'd bet that she's not going to course correct. And she's already blaming other people about why she did so poorly. She's blaming other Republicans. She's blaming everyone but herself, just like Donald Trump is doing right now. And so I hope, on behalf of, if she does win, for the sake of the district, I hope she does course correct. I really don't care about the yelling and the screaming. What I care about is she's not focused on this district. And I want her to focus on this district, because the men and women and the kids and the families and the businesses and the communities of this district want somebody to focus on them and not on the representative self. So for her sake, I really don't care. For her constituents' sake, and for my community members' sake, I hope she does focus on the district. But if she doesn't anymore, I'm a big believer she will be tossed in 2024.
And I think with regard to exactly that point, we've seen that these House races in close districts are oftentimes more of a marathon than they are a sprint. And we watched as Marie Newman took shots multiple times at Dan Lipinski, who is a super conservative Democrat up in Illinois, and it took a couple cycles before people recognized who he was and before people kind of learned who she was. And as I said, people are learned who you are very quickly. It's clear that they're not pleased with Lauren Boebert in that district. So this doesn't mean the end of the road in any case, whether it's in 2022 or 2024. But with that said, we're always looking for more data points on how to win in red districts because, we can't win everywhere if we don't run everywhere. What advice do you have for Democrats who are running in these districts that we would consider safely Republican, especially in an era of such high polarization?
Yeah. So, I think two things need to happen minimally. One, you need to find a candidate that can really resonate with people. Now, in CD3, a district that's 25D, 31R, 43 unaffiliated, and people think is somewhere between R8 and 15, I thought it was going to be required to be a moderate, pragmatic business person, which I am. And I think that's one of the reasons we did so well. Regardless of anything, you have to be willing to do a lot of work with some really good qualified people. It can't be done on a whim. It doesn't mean you need an unlimited amount of money. We were outspent by her vastly, and here we are almost 50-50. But you really have to have a quality campaign. John Fetterman is a lot more progressive than I am, but he was able to do well. So I'm not saying that every single person has to be center left candidate, but that's what this district needs. Sadly, unfortunately, you need to find out and be realistic, not just emotional. Just because you really want to defeat someone, or the country really wants to defeat someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene, I just ask people to really focus on doing a little bit of simple math, which is there someone that if you can get 10 or 15% of the prior voters, can that go on to your normal base? And will that get you to 50 plus one? And too many times, with respect to people running, we see people absorbing a lot of money, a lot of media cycle, and going after races, and they're losing by 10 or 15 points. And so everyone who wants to run should run. It's not just about defeating that person in that one time. It's about sending a message. I believe in that. But my view was I wasn't going to get into what I thought was going to be a long shot, even though everyone else thought it was going to be a long shot. I only was going to go after this if I could really look people in the eye and say, I truly believe there's a path, and here's the math how to do it. And I need your help. And it was a lonely ask for many, many months, but we finally were able to break through the donor cycle and the media cycle. And here we are, 0.3% behind. We were up by 1.5 points on election night. So we're in the mix. I'm getting calls from a lot of important people in DC. They're very aware of how well the race we ran, and they're very well aware that they did not return any phone calls for months. But I'm not a vengeful person. I don't hold them against them. There's a lot of other races to focus on. But, the main thing is that we're in the ability to really defeat one of the true and only extremists that has any chance of being defeated. And we're proud for that. We're humbled by all the support we're getting from literally all over the world, but definitely all over the country.
And to build on that now, how could we best help? Like what does the campaign need in terms of reaching out to voters to cure ballots? What can we do?
Yeah. So pop on the website that's over my shoulder at adamforcolorado.com. There's a way to donate still. Again, $5, $25, up to a couple $1,000. But these small donations really matter a lot. We need the money for the legal fund to possibly take on one of the most litigious persons and fiery persons in politics in the country right now as well. We also we basically have a new Get Out the Vote team that we also need to pay for as well. So we'd love support from there. If there's people to help, it will say on the website about how people can help, who to contact to help cure, which is making phone calls or sending text messages. If anybody does know anybody in Western or Southern Colorado, please reach out to them and make sure that their ballot is confirmed. You can go on the Secretary of website for that. Or if they want to do some door knocking, again, you can go on the website at adamforcolorado.com about how to help. And I think that's really important. Our towns are Grand Junction and Pueblo and Aspen and Telluride and Crested Butte, Durango, Alamosa, Rangeley, and those in Montrose. So those are the big cities we have. But if you know anybody out there, just check in with them. They can get a hold of the county list of voters, and they can look for those that are yous or ours that might be friendly to us. And we'd love to get those phone calls made.
Thank you so much for taking the time, and thank you for running, such a great campaign, an inspiring campaign, and kind of showing everybody that there's hope to really take on and hopefully cast out these extremist Republicans who are kind of just dragging the entire political system down with it. So we appreciate it. We'll keep pulling for you, and thanks again for taking the time.
Thanks so much. Great to you. Have a great day, and to all your listeners. I know you have a big following, and thanks everybody for the time.